They're building offices on the back side and making the manufacturing space on the front side. That actually is still being looked at as amazing how quickly it was 32 days from when they told us to go to when they actually got the specs written, the bids sent out, the engineers identified, the construction companies identified, the state grants put in place, the county authorizing it. Basically all these things happened, and Nashville worked in concert with local, we got stormwater permits filed quickly. Basically 32 days in something that would have normally taken at least 6 months. And that was something that the company required. We have to have this stuff, we have to start pushing dirt around, and we did, from 32 days from when they said go to when they started moving dirt. And actually they got ahead of schedule because the weather was favorable. So they're very pleased, and of course, we want to take care of our existing industry as much as possible. So, because that is where our job growth is coming right now. So anyway, that was actually a very, very major thing. Everyone knows what's going on at the old inland container building. They see quite a bit of activity. That's probably going to house about 24 tenants, at least in the beginning when it starts. And these are going to be some professional offices and things, a lot of medical, a lot of outpatient things. They're trying to recruit neurologists to come here. So it's going to be a very valuable building. And one of the issues that they have was, right now they're worried about just getting the building open and operational. The city's working very well with them, but there is still this large sewer line that transects some of the property alongside their building, which is going to inhibit possible development of just either other retail or professional offices. It could be, pharmacies, hotels, restaurants, whatever, because the way the sewer line runs across it. So what we're using that, and this is actually going to be kind of like a baby tax increment financing project, to where we can basically get that sewer line moved, allow the taxes generated on that space to basically pay that off. We won't have to go out and float a big revenue bond or anything like that, but it's going to be a win-win for everybody if we can get all the particulars. But the engineering is done, and it looks like it's going to be kind of a nominal cost, so the city can kind of borrow money from itself. So if this TIF, which about a month ago was actually on the chopping block in Nashville almost did away with TIFs because they were being abused out west in Memphis and places like that. So that was one thing that we're extremely concerned about. So we talked to folks and made sure it's like, please do not kill these, because even though we have not taken advantage of them up here, but we're about to, and it would have hurt because we're about ready to get started on doing that, and they almost were just done away with and made illegal. So fortunately that is something that we can use. Had a meeting just this morning about setting up an improvement district downtown, to where there could be some, and TIFs and special improvement districts and things like that, they all kind of blend together to do it as a kind of a bootstrap type way of economic development. People kind of, it's our problem, we'll fund it ourselves, we'll take care of it ourselves, and basically, try to get, well, there'll have to be a board set up to be kind of an authority that'll oversee it, but, some of the things that they look to do is kind of like what they did in Old Town Knoxville, to get people to live on like the second floor, try to get people to live downtown, which will then encourage more activity in the evening, which will encourage more investment because people will try to capture, the markets that the folks living downtown. So, it's a slow process, but you have to have a plan. So we're actually starting to put that together. We're trying to get the formation of that. And that is something that you've got some folks out there who have money that they'd like to invest, but they'd also like to know that they have a return on that investment. So, and it's not all driven by grants, it's actually driven by the community. So usually those work, and they're sustainable. So that's something that we're going to hopefully get
I've often wondered about the upstairs of all the downtown buildings, how wonderful it would be if they were occupied as dwellings.
That's it.
But they're all separately owned.
Right, and that's part of the problem. Well, you could either have 0% loans. You can get, you can put different programs in place to where it actually, once you have people, once you know, it's that chicken and egg type thing. I mean, you do have a few people that are fixing up some of the second floor things, And that's a way for healthy downtowns. And, you know, you'll have living on the second, third, and fourth floor in residential, or I mean, retail and commercial on the ground floor. You know, property values go up, and of course you'll have, you know, added police protection and all this other stuff downtown as there's more activity. But a lot of times, you know, you have facade programs, you have other programs that help the owners bring their buildings up to code.
That's what I was asking.
And that's been the disincentive a lot of times because of life safety issues and how do you get by that and that kind of stuff. But if you have an authority that's helping them, and you know, it's sanctioned by the city, I mean, but it allows them to, they could even levy their own tax inside that district if they want to. So people inside that district would pay an extra so much, but that money gets spent back in that district. And it's like, do they want buried utilities? Do they want their sidewalks cleaned every day? Do they want garbage collection every day? You know, what is it they want? And that's what the district kind of runs itself, and they, you know, they can expand it as they want to. So there's already kind of a downtown enhancement plan. It's more ideas of what's been done in other towns, but we are partnering with some of the folks that actually pulled this off in Knoxville. And we're going to have meetings with them to find out what they did that was right and what they did that was wrong. You know, and it's literally changed with, you know, their market square and all that stuff, and there's been a lot of investment. So anyway, so we're going to go kind of get that started. Let's see, and this is something that we're going to, well, near and dear to the mayor's heart as far as the Roan Mountain Sewer Project. They have gotten their numbers together, so they're wanting to pull the technical committee back together, so that's something we should be looking for in the next few weeks. And the cost compared to what they threw out on day one is significantly less. And it's very manageable, and it'll not just service a core group of the businesses, but there'll be possibly about 60 to 100 residential that will be able to take advantage of this, and it's completely scalable and done in phases. So it'll play much better than it did the first time when we had some of the public meetings and people were hearing $27 million, $22 million, and things like that. So, you know, there would be a sewer bill attached, but it's not going to be just, you know, for commercial and things like that, but it's not going to be a deterrent like it looked like at the beginning. So that's something that we should be hoping for here very soon. I did go meet with some folks with an international hotel company. We've pitched Carter County, Elizabethton, and evidently we kind of struck a nerve, and now they're willing to offer, basically allow someone to have a franchise here in Carter County. Now, they've denied other franchises in our region, but they saw the worthiness of offering, you know, if we could find a developer to build a hotel, which of course, and I know Mr. LaPorte doesn't like to hear that, there could be a revenue bond that is one of the revenue bonds that could come through this board, is to, you know, to float a hotel. But that's something down the road. But there is somebody that we are trying to get, he's at least in Northeast Tennessee, who has built other properties around us, who would be willing to possibly develop a property here. We've got several suitable locations. We just want the person to come here so we can show them those suitable locations and possibly take those next steps and find out. And that's, you know, they may have their own money. They may not need to float a revenue bond. So anyway, but it's usually a, you know, $4 or $5 million investment. So
the key is getting them here, showing them what our area is like. Based on my experience in real estate, the client normally doesn't come to you. You've got to go to them, at least strike that interest in them here. So it's a positive move, and there are probably others, you know.
sure. And the thing is, it's, yeah, we're trying to find, and these are developers that the hotel company is comfortable with. They know they protect their franchises. They know they operate things legitimately and follow all the rules of the international franchise. And it'll be a very recognizable brand. You know, the talk was even possibly a full-service hotel. Don't know. So anyway, so that's something that if we can get them here, you know, start the sales.
And this representative is more than willing to help make those contacts with these individual investors. So I feel good about it.
Right. So we've got that hopefully on the horizon. we talked about developing an industrial site. You know, we have identified a parcel. We have already talked with the owner. We have actually talked to the other municipalities around us. If we, you know, go ahead and do this as a regional effort, we have a phase 1 on the property, but we need to go farther and do a phase 2, phase 3, do core samplings, do some of the geotechnical. The soil's actually already been disturbed, so it's a relatively flat site. So we're talking about negligible development costs. It has good access to I-26. It has just huge water lines, huge sewer lines, fiber optics are there. You know, it would actually create possible growth in the western part of our county. Now, who would actually own that? This is possible that it could be in this bond board's hand. I know I've talked about that. Right now, one of the partners, the regional partners, we're waiting on some information from them, so we will actually have a good handle on what the development costs are going to be. So when we can actually make an offer to purchase this property, because we need it to be 100% under, you know, for economic development, we have to control the piece of ground, whether we use it as an incentive or whatever we need to do improvement-wise. And this is something where we can regionally share in the development and also share in the tax revenue. So, but there's a lot of things that have to happen before we get to that part. But right now, with all the reshoring going on, there's a lot of companies even out of Ireland, and just actually English companies. There's a lot of companies that are in Europe and Western Europe that are wanting to move closer to their markets and actually do manufacturing here. They're cherry picking. I mean, they're in the driver's seat and they know it, so they're asking for all kinds of stuff that, you know, without us controlling a piece of ground, we can't even respond to it. You know, they're asking for, you know, they want rail, they want water, they want interstate access, they want intermodal this, they want, you know, a port, they want, you know, it's kind of like, you know, they're asking for everything, but that's the way it is right now, because they're not taking over old buildings. They don't want to retrofit old buildings. They're looking for more green space or pad-ready sites, and this is something we'll be able to give them. You know, we're looking at about 8 acres or so right now just to get started, which could support 150, maybe 200,000 square foot building with parking. You know, so that's something that we will hopefully actually get started this summer. You know, if we can just kind of keep everybody at the table and keep this thing going along. So the owner's out of country right now, but when they return, you know, we'll be able to pick up kind of where we left off with them. So that's something that, you know, may be coming through this board, depending legally whatever's going to be the best thing to make this thing move forward. Have identified a site for an industrial sign. We've talked about doing that with the Watauga Industrial Park, being able to show who the tenants are here. It's actually out of TDOT's right of way. It's a weird little parcel that if we can figure out who owns it and get them to agree to let a sign be erected, it'll show, you know, for the 3 entrances to the park, which tenants are at each entrance, which will actually help with deliveries and trucks and things like that coming and going. So that's something that, and now that we've got that little site, we can get the renderings done to get some cost estimates, and then there are some monies out there, either through TVA and some other industrial development, you know, opportunities where we can possibly get some grant assistance to have that done, and that's something that, you know, the tenants in this park would like to have, for people to know what's actually here. And now, let's see, I'll leave. I don't know if Keith wants to bring this up. I'll just leave that alone for now. I went and saw the Red Energy. Do not get this stuff on you. This is actual crude oil that was produced from the continuous thermo microwave depolymerization process type thing. This actually was done out of wood pellets, and these wood pellets, you know, they did this when they went through this stress test. All the engineering has come through, and the people that are going to underwrite this project, you know, are very pleased with the results. It actually, some of the yields are higher than what they initially anticipated, and this is some of the stuff that we looked at. That, you know, this is the biochar that actually this is what comes out of the wood pellets, but when you look at it and see that it's almost intact to what it looks like when it goes in, except for it comes out black and they've removed a lot of the carbon. But this thing, as a soil amendment, they have done testing in like horrible soil conditions. Like we wouldn't have that issue here because we've got a lot of good farmland and things, but if you go down into places with really sandy soils, or if you go to places where the topsoil is gone, they've actually mixed this land amendment, they've broadcast and mixed this stuff in, and the yields are incredible. So it's already been proven that this is a very valuable land amendment as an offtake. And all the stuff in it, it's got, you know, nitrogen, it's got like all kinds of good stuff in it. And it allows, you know, pretty good crop growth. And you can, like every 3 or 4 years is all you need to do is broadcast it on there. And this would be considered a waste product, but now it actually has value. You know, I think I've shown you all this, is the municipal solid waste that's been pelletized, which is another feedstock. And right now, the feedstock agreements, we are about to really push that forward. There's several people looking at this process. They've got not only the depolymerization process for the synthetic diesel, but they also have a sublimation process which is able to take solids and turn them into gas without going into the liquid state, which takes it out of some of the gasification problems and the emissions and whatnot. So they've actually got a separate process that could be co-located with these for, can't say a whole lot about it, other applications, but again, these are all closed loop systems, and there are 0 emissions. So the permitting comes into the material handling and things, but they are still looking at Carter County for their for tires. And that'll be what they're going to start off with, and this is something that later today I'll be having discussions with these 2 gentlemen on my left about the next step and how everything has literally just jumped forward in the last week. So everything's very positive, and again, for the tire processing, they are still looking at Carter County. They are setting these things up other places in the planet right now. But right now, we're still the lead for the tire processing, and this is something which, you know, it will not have, the only emissions will be from diesel generators, which, you know, have their own, you know, scrubbers, and the generators will be generating electricity on site, but that's already being regulated. So anyway, so we're looking for some very positive news this summer about this group. So. But like I said, it's smelly and it's dirty, and you don't want to get it on you because it doesn't come off. But that is a crude. That's got a lot of water in it, and they've actually tweaked the process. But I mean, that's got quite a bit of water in it. So the stuff that has come out since then, once they hydrogenate it and start making it where it could, well, become diesel, it's got a higher cetane value than what's at the pump. It's actually got a really good shelf life. There's no conversion on the vehicles like they had to do with biodiesel, even though they're using essentially bio waste or any carbon waste. I mean, so nothing's changed on the process except for it's gotten better and the equipment's gotten smaller, and the yields are actually higher than what their modeling showed. So they did some pretty significant stress tests, again attempting to break the machines, and it worked. It was successful. So as far as capitalization, some of those things, they're there. That's why it's so important for us to get our feedstock agreements. And I mean, this isn't anything new. This has been said over and over. But right now, that is the final piece. Everything's done. So once we get feedstock and can give them a base amount that they know is coming in, then we will have an announcement.
Yeah, it's kind of like time is the essence in reference to feedstock, so we're going to have to put the push on and
Yes.
get this to happen here soon.
Right. And I mean, essentially, it's just everyone to promise their waste tires and, you know, plastic bottles, things like that. They all have a high petroleum level, and it's easy for them to process it into the synthetic diesel. And they come up with like little recipes where they'll put like wood chips or wood pellets and mix it with the plastic to get the moisture levels where it's supposed to be. And this is all computer controlled, and it's very interesting, and it works. So it's, you know, it's very, very exciting, very, very exciting. So anyway, but that's
the final product. What's the cost? I mean, how does it compare to like the oil products under the ground? I mean, is it, I assume there's some point where it's economically feasible or it's not. You know what?
Well,
Are they
the
discussing
cost,
that
the
with you?
cost comes into refining. And that's when
Yeah.
when you're manipulating, you know, the
I
carbon.
mean, like the cost of a barrel of oil, what's the, when does this become a lot more effective or cheaper than?
You're talking about probably the production, they're gonna probably have about a little over $1 a gallon in their cost. Which right now, you know, the oil companies can't touch it because of what they have to do in the agreements with the companies they have to have. So that's why the value is in the feedstock. As long as they know that they're gonna have feedstock, they're gonna know that they can produce this synthetic diesel, which then, you know, they can actually create their own, you know, hydrocarbons to inject back into the system, so they don't even have that expense. And they can get that through that sublimation process. So, I mean, essentially, they have come up with covering all facets, and that's where the final piece, but it's significantly cheaper for them to produce this than it is to go out and do oil exploration and bring it up and have the pipelines and, you know, and basically all have the geopolitical issues that we have, you know, in the oil-producing countries. And they could even take the waste oil, they can even take some of the crappier coal and clean it up and get value to that. So I mean, there's like a lot of applications to this process. So, you know, essentially our energy dependence could change. Now, that's going to create, you know, solid waste issue. You know, it's just like where sawdust, stuff like that, people couldn't get rid of it. Now, when companies are using it to mix with things and they're burning it and doing whatever, you know, then now there's a value to what used to be a waste product. So that's always the risk. But when you talk about being able to take anything carbon-based, that's a pretty wide field. So, and it may eventually get to where they'll start mining landfills, you know, to dig those back up because there'll be some, you know, value to the waste.